Hey buddy, Jim from Jim's HUGE Coleus. Boy, what a day. Yesterday was a washout. You saw my video. Today I was planning on bringing my Corvette to a couple of shows. One of them, it was rainy early this morning, so the roads were wet, so I ended up going to another smaller car show in Lacey Township, New Jersey. But it was a fantastic day. I had a good time. I got home early enough that I was able to put all of my rootings, cuttings, rootings in my pots in my yard. I may add one or two more Coleus, but wanted to show you. I was going to do a short, but shorts are a minute long. I wanted to really do a little longer, so I'm going to shoot this video out. So stay tuned. I'll show you the cuttings. And the video I just did yesterday shows you actually how to handle leggy cuttings, which most of my cuttings were very leggy because they were so old from last year. So all of these are very leggy, so once I show you, I'll get into it. So let's go and take a look at the cuttings, and remember this video if you're following along, because these are my planters, and hopefully they'll grow, I think they will, into beautiful arrangements as they have in the past. And there's always little rascals that come along and try to spoil the party. So we'll get to that. So all right, so let's enough talk, let's get to the cuttings. Oh, by the way, it will be 21 years this June since I bought this my '87 Corvette, and my son and I, we just took a series of pictures today to go over, because as he went from a little boy to a man now, every time I came home with a trophy, we would take a picture next to the car. So here are a few pictures of my son and myself wearing similar clothes or the same shirt over the course of the past 18 years, including today. And it was a lot of fun. Before we get to the cuttings, I just wanted to shout out to the American Cancer Society. I sponsored, as you know, if you're following along, you know I grew 50 Coleus plants and donated them to the American Cancer Society. They had a Relay for Our Life run yesterday in the Jersey Shore, and they had this beautiful, this nice banner on display at the run. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, and it's my honor to help. You know, I try to give back. My YouTube, Instagram, my eBay sales. If you've heard this song from me, if you've been following along, I really try to give back the money that I make on my YouTube videos and so forth. I always run donation drives month after month. So this was a wonderful, this is a good opportunity for me to help out American Cancer, and also to maybe pick up some new subscribers and so forth. So okay, so where do we start? Okay, here are the inky fingers. Now my inky fingers, if you look on the Rosy Dawn, I got these from Rosy Dawn last year. Now if you look on the Rosy Dawn website, the inky fingers were purple, and they had a pronounced green edge. You can almost see it there. But what happened with these, and they didn't have that red in the center or the violet. What happened with these last year, I had them on the other side of my property. I'm going to show you that pot, and that pot was in sun all day. These got sun all day, and these are actually washed out. They really turn black, and that'll happen with not all, but some Coleus will turn very dark. They'll lose, like my fishnets, if they're in full sun for a prolonged period of time, will turn almost black. And I think I have one of my rootings that has that. But anyway, I decided to, and I had mentioned this in an earlier video, when I make up my planters. Now this is the planter that's next to my Rosa Sharon. It gets filtered sun most of the day in the morning. It's going to be curious to see how this does this year with my neighbor. As he mentioned in my earlier video, my neighbor cut down this huge tree that used to cover up this whole area from sun, so the sun would be filtered in pretty, you know, and then the summer, obviously the sun is higher. But anyway, this is a great location for coleus because it gets filtered sun, and then this is later in the afternoon. It's about almost 5 o'clock, and we get sun from the west, and it gets a nice shot of sun. And even in summertime, it's not really super strong sun, but it is enough to give these the sun that they need, and of course during the day the shade. So this is an ideal pot. It always has been, and every coleus arrangement that I planted here really turns out very, very well. You know, as you can see here, here's a picture from last year or a year before. But I have the 3 very leggy inky fingers, but they have nodes coming in. They will start to develop new nodes, and this will all fill in eventually. It's a possibility one of them may die. I don't think so. I think they're healthy enough. They have an extensive root ball, and I buried it pretty deeply. Weather, maybe if we get a heavy windstorm, possibly it could break. These here, I like to get a lot of color. There's a jitters. I may add one in the center. Haven't decided yet. I think this should be enough, because actually I put these 3 big inky fingers here, and they're going to really, we have to see how these go. Once these start to, once I see growth developing along here, then I'll decide to cut the top. Right now I don't want to cut these right now because it might shock the rooting and it could die. So I'm going to leave these and see how it develops. I've had experience in this before with super leggy root cuttings, and most of the time they will, once they're outside and the warm weather starts, there's those planes again, it'll start to grow in. There's actually nodes coming in, so these I think will be fine. One problem I have is my little rascal squirrels. They just almost always, they will come and dig one of these up, and I check it multiple times a day, and I'll just replant it. Once in a while they'll steal it on me, but most of the time they're just digging in here for food or nuts, and they happen to dig up the plant. You know, squirrels like it. So once in a while I'll lose a plant that way, a coleus, or most of the time I just replant it and just keep doing it, and it may happen 3 or 4 times, but eventually it's rooted well and it develops, and before I know it, these are going to be huge. So stay tuned and just watch how this beautiful arrangement, soon to be, develops. I like that. Now I'm here at the Jersey Shore, so rentals, noisy neighbors, but I really don't mind. It's actually good to hear people having a good time. So okay, I have a Saturn cutting. I had 1 Saturn cutting left over. I potted some Saturn rings, but I had this 1 single cutting, so I decided to put it here. I did order a few from Rosie Dawn this year, so I don't mind because I love Saturns. So I got a bunch of them from Rosie Dawn, and I have the Saturn rings, which I'm going to show you. And I did get some Saturn rings from Rosie Dawn, but so we got this Saturn. That's a healthy cutting. I mean, that's a cutting from last August, and it's very vibrant because it was been cared for, frequent water changes. I always rinse the root ball, and it's always been at a well-lit window, so it's always been very, very bright. So it looks good. Of course, my favorite, these grow like mad, so this should develop into something like this. That's what I'm hoping for. I wanted to put a little darker red color, purple. So this is sort of like it's not a scarlet Kong, but it isn't a Kong variety. There are so many Coleus, folks. It's kind of washed out because of the water, because I just planted it. But I wanted to get a little dark color in here. And then I have these, which I think these are crimson gold. They're not scarlets, although they look similar to scarlets. But I want to say they're crimson gold because they're smaller leaves than the scarlet Kongs, and they're not lime sprites. I know that. So I'm going with. And these are two separate, but regardless, it's going to be, I know this is going to grow into a magnificent pot. So this is going to be a nice pot, a nice arrangement. Stay tuned. And again, same thing, the little critters, they're always coming in to dig this up. And again, I'm hoping that these stay and they don't walk off with them. All right, nothing fancy here, folks. Nothing fancy. This is that old galvanized, repurposed pail. And every year I try to put something very colorful here. And I had that old, this was actually a branch from the mother colossal marble that I had that broke. And it was tiny. I rooted it, and so I put it in here. I love the color, and I have the mother plant in the greenhouse. And I have this eye catcher, and I always put like a pink, a really fuchsia, bright pink Coleus. It's almost like a wizard rose, but it's got black, so it's got a little Kong action going in there. Kongs are very, very, I mean, they're just, you never know what you're gonna get, and they mutate. I mean, I'm not a horticulturalist, I don't botanist and so forth, but Kongs are, I mean, there's a whole, the universities that grow Coleus, there's so much going on crossbreeding them, and because of the beautiful colors, and it's amazing stuff. So, but this should be a beautiful arrangement in a month or so. And again, same thing, waiting for Mr. Squirrel, so we got to keep an eye on it. A potting mixture. You can see the time release fertilizer. So I just put potting mixture in there, and time release fertilizer, and water, and we'll just keep it going. And I'm not going to hit it with the Miracle Grow general purpose plant food that you mix with the water yet. I don't hit any of my plants with that stuff until they're pretty well rooted in and growing and more mature. Then I start to give it that, because we got the time release fertilizer, but I do like to use the liquid mixed type of fertilizer. Okay, and of course this was in my video yesterday, or the video preceding this one, and these are my 3 Lord Voldemort rootings from last year. And I was able to get a few seeds. I got 1 seed stalk to develop after hitting it with Bloom Booster last year, and I did get some seeds, and I believe I have a few growing in the greenhouse. But I do have these, and they look good and actually getting some growth going in. So these will develop quite nicely in this nice deep long pot. I don't have to worry about squirrels. They can dig all they want, but we're talking, again, if you saw the video yesterday, you know how far down these were. Very long leggy Coleus cuttings, and we buried them pretty deep. Plenty of roots, big extensive root balls. Potting mixture, and time release fertilizer. I made sure I mixed up the soil real well before I planted these, and it's fine. Things they should do quite well. Okay, now these are I did not order fish nets from Rosie Dawn this year, because I had these 2 really healthy fish nets. And this is what I mentioned earlier. This is what happens to fish nets when they're kept in full sun. And this cutting was in my bay window, and it just got, it was from the mother plant, which was full sun, and it's just, it'll start to lose its patterning. You can actually see it, but it'll start to lose some of its green, as opposed to this. But I put it over here. It's not going to get as much sun. It will get sun during the daytime, and I'll see how it does. But again, these were pretty leggy, extensive root balls, and I buried them down pretty good. Good quality Miracle-Gro potting mixture, some soil left over from last year, time release fertilizer. I buried the root balls on both sides here, and I did sprinkle a little bit of worm castings around the top, a little bit, and I gave it some water, actually natural rainwater, because we had a lot of rain yesterday, so I saved a bunch. So I just watered all of my all of these rootings that I just put in, these cuttings, with rainwater. Okay, now these are the inky fingers also. I had a lot of these, and you can see these are super leggy. I mean, I buried them really deeply, and we still have all of this, but look at all of the growth coming in already. So it's only a matter of time before these start to explode. And I had 2 Defiance left over. These were rootings, and you know, they're okay. They're not doing great, but they got color. They're not dead. There's no brittleness. They're greens. There's some growth coming in. So just remember this pot, and I still have to decide what to put in here. So I'm going to wait a little bit and choose a coleus in my greenhouse that's a little larger, because obviously we got these monsters growing here. So I don't want to put a little coleus here, because these are going to overtake it. And again, same thing with these as the other one. I don't want to trim. Now these actually I could. I'm going to actually trim these tops here. But again, I don't want to shock the very top. The very top 2, I'm going to cut. The very top 2 I'm going to cut and leave these. But I don't want to cut down here, because I don't want to shock the cutting and risk losing it. But I will. Cutting the top 2 is not going to do anything but benefit it. These I'm not going to mess with. These are good. Again, time release fertilizer, Miracle-Gro potting mixture, and again, I tossed a little bit of worm castings, not too much. Okay, so here we are in the greenhouse before we close. This is a Saturn rings. These are 2 rootings that I've kept from last year, and I just potted it in this. And I love the Saturn rings. These are spectacular, and these cuttings are in really nice shape. So I potted this, and I want to really give this a really good jump start. So I'm going to put it in the greenhouse for a while, and I'm going to let it develop, and then eventually I'm going to put it outside, or I may keep it in here for a little longer, let it develop, see how it goes. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with this whole pot. That's something that's going to go on later on. But anyway, Saturn rings, same thing, potting mixture, time release fertilizer, and rainwater, and we'll keep it going. So what do you think? Which one should I plant in that white planter with those giant inky fingers and those 2 Defiance? What do you think? Maybe a mosaic, or how about this? This is a sort of I want to say it's like a crimson gold, but it's very it's a little interesting, but that's a nice healthy size. So what do you think? There's a nice mosaic. I have an idea where that's going. I think I'm going to be making a hanging basket with that one. I know we were just in here yesterday, but I'm telling you folks, it just seems like overnight they just I don't know, man. It just seems like overnight they just explode. Look at that color. I have an idea who I'm going to give that plant to. By the way, that is the mother plant I spoke of that little colossal marble that broke, that little stem that broke off of this. This is the mother plant from last year. It's very leggy, but it's doing well. I shouldn't say it's doing well. It's doing okay. It's a little something going on. I'm gonna repot it. It is getting some growth in here, but it's old. You can see it's starting to get that bark. But I think I have to repot it. It's been in this since last year, and I think it's time for a bigger pot. And this is a beautiful, beautiful plant. So we're gonna repot this into a little something larger. And of course the wizard roses, not much action going on. So, all right, I don't want to stay on too long here because we got that party going on next door, and I'm sure you don't want to hear that. So, but they're doing really well, and this week I am going to start potting these into, not all of them, but some of them into the decorated pots for my farmer's market. Okay, so that was a lot of fun. It's been a long day. I got up at 5 o'clock this morning to get ready to go to this car show, and then it sort of rained out a little bit. Ended up taking about an hour or two to decide when to go or look up another car show. But anyway, long day. I got home around 3 and did all this potting and so forth. I really wanted to get the cuttings going. So I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate you, sharing my Corvette and little stories with my Corvette with you guys. I hope you enjoy the little stories. So, all right. So stay tuned. We'll be making up some pots shortly, and stay tuned here. HUGE Coleus. Thanks for watching.